To those of you who've joined, us this evening, thank you very much for jumping onto Zoom. This is our information session for you to get a bit of an understanding of what kindergarten involves, some of the classroom routines and the school routines that your child may be part of and be participating in. I will remind you, however, that we are recording this meeting this evening, so it will give you an opportunity to go back and listen to some parts that you might have missed, or maybe picked up on some of the questions and answers that we'll have at the end of the presentation, just in case you just need to refresh your memory of some of the things that are happening in kindergarten this year. So if you wouldn't mind turning off your cameras and muting while the record is in progress, we would appreciate it. But then we will open up the cameras possibly towards the end so you can ask questions. Feel free to pop any questions as you go through into the chat box below if you don't feel comfortable waiting until the end to put up your hand and ask the team a question. And we'll try to answer it as best we can towards the end of the presentation. I think it's easier to have a question and answer section at the end instead of going through after each section. So welcome everybody. Thank you so very much for jumping on. It's probably a nice opportunity actually to do this via Zoom, considering the state of the weather we have outside at the moment. So to kick things off, I just want to welcome the kindergarten team for this year, for 2022. And we have on K Yellow, Mrs. Rebecca Mills and Mrs. Gemma Montague. Hey. And on K Red, we have Mrs. Gemma Trinder. And we also have joining us tonight Mrs. Tiffany Morse, who is our Learning Support Coordinator here at Revesby South this year. And she's working very closely with kindergarten and the kindergarten teachers, offering them some learning support, especially in the literacy sessions in the morning. So thank you very much for joining us, and I'll take it away over to the team.
That's you. Do you want to go back one, Jem? Oh, yeah. Thank you everyone for joining. As Mrs. Saul just said, I'm Mrs. Trinder. I have K Red. Mrs. Mills and Mrs. Montague share K Yellow. They're both in on a Wednesday, as you can see. So they relieve each other for RFF, which means it's a lot more consistent for the children, which is great. Mrs. Saul is our assistant principal here at Revesby South, and she's our early stage 1 leader. Mrs. Tiffany Morse, she does kindergarten support, so she's in the rooms in both classrooms every morning, Monday to Thursday, and then she's in K Red extra on Monday for my release. So she is with K Red quite a lot, which is lovely. We've got some weekly activities here, just to a bit of a quick rundown of the week. So we've moved homework days that it's coming home and days that you're returning it, just so we could try and include a weekend. We know how busy after school can be for families, so we just figured if you had a weekend, it might allow a bit more freedom and a bit more flexibility in when you complete homework. So homework will come back to school for the teacher to mark on a Monday, and the children will be assigned some home readers. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Tuesday is library day, so they'll bring in their books. We didn't get to the library today, unfortunately, in the weather. It just wasn't feasible with the rain. So we've still got their library books and things at school. We'll get there as quick as we can, hopefully tomorrow, if not maybe later in the week. Scripture will begin on week 6. That's also on a Tuesday morning. You would have ticked in enrolment forms which scripture you would like your children to go to. Mrs. Millard puts them in the groups, and we take them to the rooms and things that they go to for scripture. Homework will come home on a Tuesday, so lots of you would have seen that first lot today in their B folder this afternoon. And we're also trying to do news a little bit differently this year. We're going to trial in term 1 some news groups. So they'll be in a little group of 4 or 5, and they will take turns to have news. So there'll be news topics for each week, and we'll pop that in their homework book next week, so you can begin to have a look at that and pre-prepare them, so they sort of have something in their mind to go along with. Friday is sport day, so that's the change in uniform, the gold and black. And we've just popped down the bottom B folders. So we'd like them to come to school every morning, and then we will send them home every afternoon. It just establishes with the kindergarten children that sort of routine and that sense of responsibility. And it also allows us to send notes home to you, and it also allows you to pop notes in there and send them back into us as well. And it's just a nice, easy way, especially if there's coins and things, they're in the folder, nothing sort of gets lost and rattles around in the bag.
Do you mind, Gemma, if I just jump in quickly?
Yep.
I did hear on the grapevine that possibly scripture might not be happening now until term 3. And that's simply because of COVID, and also we're having some building works planned for next term, and we simply don't have the space at this point in time. So we are still hoping to go ahead moving forward with scripture, but it may be delayed now, and the program might not begin until term 3. So watch this space just in case it changes, because it's been changing on a daily basis at the moment.
All right, so just a few things about attendance, and if you want more information on this, you can go to the school website, and it's got our attendance policy there. So regular attendance is compulsory for every student. We want everyone here as much as possible in the classroom so they don't miss any learning. However, if your child does get sick, including any flu symptoms, please keep them at home. Part of our duty of care is to record and monitor part and whole day absences. So, you know, if your child has been away for a few days and we haven't heard anything from you, you'll probably get a call from us just to check in to make sure everything's okay. But if your child is sick and can't come to school, if you could provide an explanation, either on the day that they're sick or when they get back, return to school, just through a little letter or an email or the school bag app, just so then we can print it off and put it in our records, because we're required to keep that. If your child's late, please take them up to the office first, where you'll sign them in and they'll get a little late slip that they can then bring down to the classroom, and we keep that in our records as well. If you need to pick your child up early, and it does happen for appointments or other reasons, you just need to go up to the office first and sign them out, and then the office will call down to us to send your child up with all their bag and their belongings and what they need. So I know for those that came last year to Mr. Witten's information session, he spoke a little bit about our positive education model that we are in the draft stages of. But I thought that we could just really quickly talk to you about what this looks like in kindergarten. So as you can see in the middle of the model, it's our goal to have students flourishing, and that's where they're happy and content. Outside of that, we've got the character strengths. So in kindergarten, we're going to focus on one character strength a week, and that might be kindness, that might be gratitude, that might be perseverance. And what we do is we're going to strength spot in the classroom with our peers, with our teachers, what it looks like, how you might use that character strength. And we're also going to look in, read picture books and storybooks with characters that show those different character strengths. Then around the outside are the elements that are fused into our daily routines and programs. So for example, the food and exercise is in our crunch and sip and our brain breaks, And in our PDH program, we have a strong focus on the social and emotional development of the child to help them build resilience and problem-solving skills, and also build good relationships with the peers and adults that that are in their lives. Another important part of our day that is in part of this wellbeing model is our mindfulness. So we do some mindful minutes throughout the day, and this is where we take the time to be present in the moment with the kids by focusing on what we feel or what we hear or what we see. And this helps them calm their bodies, and it can help reduce stress and worries and helps them refocus. I'm sorry, I think my kids are trying to get into the office at the moment. So it helps them really calm down and get ready for the next part of learning. And it's definitely something you can do at home with them if they're feeling anxious or worried. And you'll definitely see some of this on Dojo that we'll be sending home. So by following this model and implementing it and embedding it into all aspects of our day, we make sure that the students' wellbeing is enhanced and that their learning is really optimised because they're happy and feel safe and valued. So these also tie into our school rules. This is our behaviour matrix, and again, you can find this on our school website in our discipline policy. So our 3 rules are: be safe, be respectful, and be an active learner. And we've taken the kids around the school to these different areas, the classroom, the canteen, the toilets, and we've modelled to them what behaviours are expected of them and how they can behave there and keep themselves safe. So they should be able to talk to you about what those 3 rules are. And then those 3 rules tie into our merit system. And that's, again, our Strive to Succeed certificates. So each week, the teacher has 3 certificates to hand out, and Mrs. Morse, or the RFF teacher, has 1, and we get some for sport as well. So these are handed out at the end of the week to the students. We usually have an assembly, but during the COVID restrictions, we're just handing them out in class at the moment. But once your child gets 3 certificates, they get a bronze award, 6 a silver award, and 10 a gold award. So they're working towards that through the whole year. And at the end of each term, and sometimes in the middle of each term, we have a special assembly, or it might be recorded, or actually in person, where those students are recognised for that achievement. Pass it on to.
All right, thank you, Gemma. Hi everyone, I'm Mrs. Mills. If I haven't met you, I'm part of the dynamic duo with Mrs. Montague. So we can make payments for events online. Not that there's much going on at the moment, but there could be something, school fees or whatever comes home that needs to be paid. We can do it online now, but it doesn't count as permission. So say, for example, if we were going on an excursion, fingers crossed, by the end of the year, if you paid for that excursion online, you'd still need to give us permission, fill out the form and sign. So usually there's a little gap where you can record the receipt number so the office can align that payment with the permission and send it on to us. Okay, what's on? There's a lot on. There's a lot of different apps and websites and different modes of communication, and that can sometimes seem a bit overwhelming. I know with my children's school, I sort of feel like things are popping up everywhere, but it's also kind of a safety net, because if you miss something somewhere or you haven't logged on to Facebook for a while, well, then you've got a notification on the school bag app. So it's a bit of a backup plan if you are able to sort of download and have these on your phone, or remember to sort of log in every now and again and have a look at what's going on. You definitely don't have to have Dojo. It's the way that we're choosing to communicate directly with parents, but there are other modes. If you don't feel comfortable with that, you can call the office and ask for our email address, or you can email us, or you can pass on messages. Handwritten messages is fine too. Old school, we'll happily receive a letter from the B folder as well. Class Dojo, you might have seen already, we're posting some photos about the students' work on theirs, and that does also have a message feature. So you could message us if it was the last minute and something had happened in the morning and you thought that it was important for us to hear about that because it was going to impact your child's day, definitely do that. However, if there's some larger issues at play, it might be a better idea to sort of make an appointment to see us so that we can sort of observe and find out what's happening and sort of speak with Mrs. Morse as well, and we can get some ideas together and meet with you and come up with a plan. If there's some other issues going on or there's things that you'd like to talk to us in private about as well, that's another option. School bags generally the one that's done as the whole school communication, so most things go out on that. And as Gemma said before, the website has a lot of our policies on there. If you're ever unsure of anything, you can look things up on there. Thanks, Gem.
All right, routine. So this has been sort of in the making, obviously, since day one. Lots of things are changing as we go along, and we're just trying to sort of have a consistent, clear routine for them to follow. So in the morning, they've begun to transition into the playground with the rest of the school. So if you are dropping your child at a gate, you just say goodbye, encourage them to come in, maybe remind them to pop their bag down and then head to the playground. So a teacher is supervising from 8:45, and then from 9 o'clock they play on the equipment. So they actually quite enjoy that little bit of time in the morning to play with friends and see everyone before the day begins. When the bell rings at 9:15, Mrs. Mills or Mrs. Montague and myself, we meet them out in the playground. There's some silver seats that they know they sit on, and that's where we come and meet them. If it's wet weather like today, they come straight to the classroom, and again, one of the teachers or one of the support staff will be here to greet them and welcome them in so that they're not outside in the rain. Afternoons, just as we've been doing, we'll bring them to the gate, the Mars Street gate, the driveway gate, at about 3:05. If your child attends after school care, one of the staff members from after school care comes directly to the kindergarten classrooms and picks the children up, so they're not sort of left to wander up there on their own. We understand that things happen sometimes, so if you're running late, if you just give the office a quick call and let them know, then they can ring us in the classroom and let us know. It allows us then to reassure your child and just to, help, make them feel at ease that you are coming and you're not far away, and we'll stay with them until you arrive. Crunch and sip. So crunch and sips, a bit of a break in the morning. The morning session is a very, very long time for kindergarten children. So every grade has this crunch and sip break. It's when we have some fruit or vegetables and some water. We also, Mr. Whitten likes to call this time fitness, because we build some fitness into this time frame as well. So we'll go to the toilet, we'll have a movement break, we'll play a game outside, we'll come inside and do some dancing. We might go and work on some of our fundamental movement skills on the way to or back from the toilet. It just really boosts their focus and their participation, and it just allows them that sort of calming, settling time. Once they've gotten all their wiggles out, they can come back in and they find it much easier to attend to the rest of the morning's learning. The only thing we ask is that if crunch and sip can be in a separate container from their lunchbox. So if they have fruit and things in their lunchbox, that's wonderful as well, but just a separate container by itself with their fruit or their vegetables for crunch and sit that day. Just we get them to get it out in the morning when they first arrive. So if they're having, everyone's got their whole lunchbox, it's just quite difficult to manage. So, but if everyone's just got a little container and it must have their name on it so we know who it belongs to, it's much easier to manage. They can just grab it out of their bag, pop it in the tray and off they go. Oh, that's me again, the 6 L's. So that you might have heard your children come home and talk about the 6 L's. This is one of the very, very first routines that we establish in kindergarten. It's all about getting ourselves and our bodies ready for learning. So we might say to them, come to the floor and show us your 6 L's. So that means their legs crossed, their hands are in their laps, their eyes are looking at the speaker or the teacher, their ears are listening, their lips are ready. And the last L, which is ready to learn, they switch their light bulb on. So they quite like doing that little ding, turn their light bulbs on and they're ready to learn. So that's the last picture down the bottom.
I'll jump in here. So this is in line with our positive education model again, and it's something called bucket filling. So this is based on this book over here, Have You Filled a Bucket Today? And it's a metaphor that we use when talking about positive behaviours and attitudes. Sorry, it's in the way. Basically everyone has an invisible bucket that holds their good thoughts and feelings. And when the bucket's full, we're feeling great and happy. And when our bucket's empty, we're feeling a bit sad. We talk about bucket fillers in the classroom, and that's someone who says or does something nice for other people. And by doing this, they're not only filling the other person's bucket by saying that nice thing, they're also filling their own bucket at the same time. On the other hand, we've got bucket dippers that say or do things that cause other people to not feel so great. And the bucket dipper empties not only that person's bucket by saying those things or doing those things, but it's also dips from their own bucket. And so by using this really simple language of being bucket fillers by saying nice things or doing nice things for other people, it allows them to express how they're feeling and to better understand how what they do impacts the way that others feel. Bucket filling can be something in saying something nice to them. They can help each other in the classroom. If someone falls down in the playgrounds, they help them. If someone looks a bit lonely in the playgrounds, they go and say, would you want to play with me? All these things. And we just, we celebrate that bucket filling in the classroom by always talking about it. And this is our way of building, good character by making good choices. And the goal is to have students value themselves and each other by encouraging them to be helpful, compassionate, and thoughtful classmates that have a positive impact on others. Takes some time to take over. Oop. So we'll just talk briefly about the different KLAs now and focusing on numeracy. In kindergarten, maths or numeracy is very practical. It's very hands-on and games-based. Apologies, it's moving around. We use a lot of manipulatives like counters, blocks, pop sticks, dice, and there's a lot of talking involved. So when they're playing the games, you listen and you hear them using that mathematical vocab, which is brilliant. We put them into groups after seeing them at the best start and regular observations throughout the lessons. And so you can see them here. You can start with, many of our kids are in the emergent or perceptual group where they cannot count visible items, or they can count visible items with one-to-one like that. So, and then we move up to your figurative, where they can count concealed items and visualize it in their head, which we've already started working on in class by visualizing dot patterns on a dice and whatnot. And then as the day goes on, the term goes on and the terms go on, they move to counting on and counting back by holding the number in their head and then counting back from that number, or holding the number in their head and counting on from that number. And so we play these games, lots of games with a partner from their particular group. And then at the end of playing those games, we all come back together and we talk about what strategies they used when they were trying to solve the problems. So again, there's that real rich talk using that mathematical vocabulary. We also teach measurement, space and data in a very hands-on and practical way with lots of conversation involved. And I'll pass it on to the present Beck.
Yep, that's me. So just quickly looking at literacy, we've got their reading is considered the foundation of all other learnings. So teaching children how to read is a pretty big deal. Basically, we've just put up there the 6 essential skills in learning to read. They're oral language, phonemic awareness, phonics, vocab, fluency, and comprehension. Now, we don't put them there because we think that it's your job to do that. It's our job to help our kindergarten children read. But I think the idea of letting you guys see that there's more than one way to learn to read. So it's not just when we send home those books in their B folders, they're reading. It's really not just about looking at the sounds and trying to break apart the words and say the sounds. There's so much more that's involved. So I know in the past, I think one of the things that parents can sometimes feel a bit stressed about is if their child sort of is hesitant to read or hesitant to sound out, and they're sort of like, sound out the words, sound out the words. There's so many other things that go into learning to read that if you were the one to read the book, for example, that would be helpful to your child to hear you the way you read. And if we go on to the next slide, we've just put some examples of how you can help with those things. So oral language is so important in learning to read. And we develop that by having lots of conversations and asking questions when you're in the car or when you're cooking dinner together. Phonemic awareness is all about how words sound similar, or they might rhyme, or they can be manipulated. So cat is the same as hat, but it has a different sound at the front. Then phonics is when you're reading, putting those sounds that they know together, or playing games like I Spy. Vocabulary can be enhanced by using tricky words. Don't be afraid and think, oh, we won't read that together, because they don't know that. The more that they hear those unknown words, the more likely they are to stick. Fluency is when they read. It can be developed when they read the same book over and over again. So sometimes in the past, I've had parents say this book is too easy for them, but we love them to read those easy books because that's going to really cement that phrasing and that fluency over and over again. If they're reading books that are too hard, then they're not going to comprehend the book, and they're not going to be able to practice that fluency, and new vocab's not going to stick. And comprehension is the overall purpose of reading, because we read to understand and to learn. And if they're not keen on reading with you, then if you read to them, you can have conversations about what's happening in the book. It could be the library book even. So that's just a few things this is what we'll be focusing on in class, not just the alphabet, but all those rich components to learning to read. And we just thought we'd throw that in there so that you guys can consider that there's a lot of lovely conversations that you can have at home that are just as important as sort of sitting down and doing the ABCs.
Homework. So homework can be sometimes a contentious issue in families. Sometimes it works out really lovely. So homework started coming home today. You would have seen their homework books in their B folders. Homework is going to consist of 3 or 4 sorts of elements. So the first one is a worksheet. which I will go through in a second, as well as high frequency words that will come home, math seeds and home readers. So if you just want to pop to the next slide, Jem. So this is what the worksheet looks like that comes home. As you can see, it's quite scripted on the front. It tells you how, what to do. But the letters at the top, the A, S, T, A, T, S, A, they're there to help with letter formation. So that's another huge part of kindergarten, is forming our letters correctly. So with the A starting at the top, going backwards, around, up and down, rather than just drawing a circle with a stick. So it's there for them to sort of trace, and you can have a little discussion. Under that, there's some letters and words, and they've got 3 lines. So that's for the child to practice that formation 3 times. Down the bottom are some words, and once the children are gaining further skills with and getting more phonemes and graphemes in their skill set, then we'll be changing the letters and the words that come home on the homework. Right down the bottom is a 3-box where you can just tick off. You can write down if you think they did a wonderful job. You can write down if you think they're missing a sound in particular, or if you're noticing that they are forming a letter incorrectly, just you feel free to pop a little note in there, and then we can pop a little note back to you. You'll also have seen today that came home is a blue cardboard, and it's got some high frequency words on them. Those don't need to come back to school. They're for you to practice. You can cut them up and use them as sort of like memory cards. You can play a memory game with them. You can hide them around the house or the room and get them to go and find a word. You can use them to, they might be using Play-Doh, and they can make the words using Play-Doh. So they're for you to play a game with and just practice those words that we're learning in class. Math seed. So on the right hand side is a little login card. We stuck that in the front page of their homework book. So if there's a free app that you can download, or you can just go directly to the website, and they can log in there, and each week the teacher will be setting some lessons that are correlating with what we're doing in the classroom. And the last slide is just about home readers. So home reading will begin in a couple of weeks once we feel the children are sort of at a particular level. We don't want to send them home too quickly, and it just become a chore right from the beginning. Or remember, please feel free to read any books you've already got at home. The children are bringing home library books, but once home reading starts, we will give you some more information about that. News. This is the news topic. So we will stick this in there in your child's homework book as well. This week, we've just began by talking about our families, who is in your family. This correlates with our PDHP and our history units this term. We've got some other topics about in there that relate to our science unit, and a favourite week 9 and 10 is a mystery bag. So they can have a little item in a bag, and they have to describe it to their peers, who then guess what they think is in the bag. Week 11 is free choice. So we will, as we said, be doing it in small groups, just a trial, just so they're not standing up in front of the whole class right from the beginning. It gives them that little bit of confidence to begin.
And I'll jump in there and say, once we do a public speaking across the whole school later on in the year, and that's when we will start doing news in front of the whole class, so they can develop those public speaking skills as well.
Thanks, Jem.
All right, back to me. We just pop this in here to show you how we mark at our school. We teach in class using set criteria and what we call a learning intention. So up on every board, it's visible learning, what the student is learning. So in this instance, an example might be we're learning to write a simple sentence. And then the criteria is how they'll be able to achieve that. So they will be able to write a simple sentence if they use a capital letter at the beginning of their sentence and use a full stop at the end. So when we go around and give feedback to those students, we are just giving feedback on that. So there might be a stamp on the page and a big tick and a big smiley face from us because they've successfully ticked off that criteria. So I guess some of the feedback we've got in the past from parents is, oh, there was big spelling errors, but there was a big tick and a smiley face on the page. And the reason that the tick and the smiley face is because we're not nitpicking. We're really trying to just focus and spend our time giving meaningful feedback. And so the next day it might be on spelling. And then so we will tick or correct based on whatever our learning intention is, because research shows us that when teachers have a direct and clear intention, then the children understand what they're setting out to learn, and it makes their learning more, like, that makes them more achievable, what they're setting out to do, and they have a greater understanding of what's expected of them. So that's just a little bit of information for you. So when pieces of work do come back, it might not always, it might look like we haven't marked it, but we've actually been quite deliberate and specific with our feedback. Sometimes it's just verbal feedback as well. And research just shows that verbal feedback in the moment is actually better than us taking away books and marking it in a way that they're not receiving that feedback. So just a little bit of information for you about how we do things around here. Thanks, Jem.
That's it. Is that what this is for? Okay, so this week your child will be bringing home a letter which reports on the best start assessment that you brought them to school for that appointment time. Just quickly, I know we're running out of time. We just want you to be aware when you're reading this letter, remember that this was the first time that they came to school, that they met us, they were taken away from you, they were on their own in a new classroom they hadn't been to before. And it's really just a snapshot of what they could do at that moment. Already they have grown so much in the first few weeks. They know so much more than when they began. So it's really, if you see something and you think, oh, my child can do that, don't be disheartened. It's just that they didn't show it at that time. The best start is really for us to begin our planning and our teaching to make sure we are teaching at a level that is appropriate for each child. So like I said, don't be discouraged if you think that it says something that they can't do when you know that they can. Inside the letter, there's also information on what skills your child demonstrated, but also gives you some simple ideas of where to next. What can they do after that? So if you know they can count to 29, then the next is counting to 30, and then from there. If you know they can count back from 10, so then maybe now we need to start practicing counting from 20 backwards. So it just gives you some quick ideas and some games that you can play along the way just to help your child with their progression in their learning. Mrs. Saul, did you want to jump in or you're okay? Yeah.
No, you said exactly everything that I would have said, Mrs. Trinder.
Oh, good. Perfect.
Good job.
Thank you. Parent helpers, we would love to have people come in and help. We are allowed parents on site at the moment if they are fully vaccinated and they're coming in for an educational purpose. So we're just letting the children settle at the moment. It can be a little bit disruptive having mum drop you at the gate and then come back into the room. So we're just letting the children settle and get into that really sort of set routine so that they're quite independent, so that when we have parent volunteers come in, it's not so disruptive for everyone. But we definitely would love to have you come in soon, and we'll send some more information when we're clear about what we can and can't do. And that's us. Just a thank you for your time. Thank you for your support. We're loving the classes at the moment. They're really quite settled and enjoying life at school. So it's
they're amazing.
Yeah,
they've done an amazing job saying goodbye to you and walking to the classroom. We were talking about how brave they were this morning in the rain. weather that only ducks could be happy about. They were walking up to class with their big smiles on their faces, with their bags, and yeah, we feel really proud of the way they've settled in, and they've done an amazing job. We're so happy with our little kindy classes. I guess if there's any questions.
Yeah, if you wanted to pop them in the chat or just unmute yourself, feel free to do that. No. Less the typing. Well, you know how to contact us if you do think of anything overnight, or yeah, contact us through Dojo or via email or at the gate in the afternoon. Nats, did you want to say anything?
No, just wanted to say thank you to everyone for logging on. Thank you to the kindergarten team for your awesome work in getting kindergarten settled for big school into new routines, because they do have a lot to adjust to and get to learn, especially if they haven't been used to, you know, a preschool setting or things like that. So you've done an amazing job. The way that they've settled into the classroom is also got a large is largely solely due to your expertise as well. So you girls have done a fantastic job in that arena too. So yeah, no, excellent. So if anyone has any questions, pop them in the chat or feel free to ask. But as Mrs. Montague said, you do know their doors are always open. They're very approachable. Please, if you've got any concerns, do not hesitate to contact the school or contact your child's teacher directly, because if we don't know about it, we can't help solve the problem. So please keep us in the loop if there's anything happening with your child, so that we can best work together to support your child with their emotional well-being and their schooling as well. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Good night. Stay dry.